alive. Without music, audio recordings, and artificial acoustic stimuli is simply unimaginable. We grew up with radio, cinema, TV, MP3 players, CDs, and DVDs, yet we haven't been able to record sound for that long. Welcome to Drop It Beats! This is my very first podcast. But if you love music, you've come to the right place, because here you will learn everything about this topic, whether it's technology, instruments, or your favorite idols. Yoo-hoo! I'm so excited today. Okay, so to start with the first topic of this podcast, I want you to imagine we are in the middle of the year 1877. We have the first device capable of recording and playing back sound, thanks to Thomas Alva Edison, who developed the phonograph. Originally, this was intended for dictation, especially in the office use, and for storing spoken messages. So not for music directly, but it's a great precursor to modern audio technology. So it's a technical milestone because the sound could be captured and preserved permanently for the first time ever. Yes, and that brings us right to the start of the matter, the invention of the phonograph. At this point, never mind the music, because 1877 wasn't the Baroque period, which Vivaldi definitely was, but the Romantic era, and a time of upheaval, not just in music. But since we're not in history class, let's get back to the topic. So the first and, in my opinion, most important part of the podcast is how does the phonograph looks like and how does it work? So there are a lot of components because it's not as small and practical as our smartphones nowadays. It's quite the opposite. It's very big and detailed. So it has a cylinder which is looking like a rotating drum. Which records the medium, and it also has a crank or like engine which drives the rotation, like with a gramophone it's the same. And there also is a horn which collects and amplifies the sound, and last but not least there's a diaphragm and a needle, and those are the core for the recording mechanism. But how exactly does it work? Well, there are 4 simple steps. At first, a person speaks or sings into the horn, and the horn concentrates the sound waves, which hit, in the second step, the diaphragm, which is a thin membrane, by the way. So the diaphragm vibrates according to the sound. At this point, whoever came up with the word diaphragm, it's horribly hard to pronounce. At third step, the needle is attached to the diaphragm. And as the cylinder rotates, the needle etches vibrations into the surface. And the surface was originally a tinfoil. The result was a physical groove pattern representing the sound. And the fourth and last step is playing the sound. So the needle follows the grooves again, and the diaphragm vibrates once more, and the horn amplifies the sound so that the original sound becomes audible. That was pretty easy, I guess. Of course, the inventor Edison tested his newborn machine by himself first. He said, "Hello," and sang, "Mary had a little lamb." This became the first recorded human voice in history. And it sounded like this.
Mary had a little lamb, its fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go. Mary had a little lamb, its fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go.
There also is the conversation from Aunt Pilot recorded on the 23rd May in 1904 in Ebenfurth, which is the only known voice portrait of the Austrian Nobel Peace Prize laureate Bertha von Suttner. But of course, there are no inventions without limits and problems, and that's why even the phonograph is not perfect in all points. It, for example, had a very short recording time with a limit of only 1 minute, which is very short. And it also had a very poor sound quality because the records always sounded very distorted and scratchy. And the cylinders were fragile and wore out very quickly. But also there was no easy duplication because each recording had to be made individually. But some positive improvements were made. With the replacement of tinfoil with wax cylinders, for example, it was possible to have a better quality. There also was an introduction of a motorized drive, so it wasn't a crank anymore. With that invention, it was much more easier to record something. Also, durable needles were used more, for example, with the material of sapphire. This made the phonogram very much better. So the phonograph was mainly used as a dictation machine and less for music, but that's simply because it had to pass some time to make music recording possible. But no, don't be upset and think, no, I thought you would talk about music but didn't, because Thomas Edison created history with the phonograph and laid the foundation for making music recording possible in the future. How this was going and which chances and diversity we now can experience should be part of another podcast or other podcasts. You never know. For that, make sure to like this podcast and follow me. Don't you dare not doing it. Well, that was a joke. But now, to sum this up. The phonograph was an invention by Edison in the year 1877, which made it possible to record sound and human voice for the very, very, very first time in history. It was a very, 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 very great improvement made by people. Think of it, truly think of it. It's just impressive how people can do that. Wow, I think it's pretty cool. What's your opinion of the phonograph? Could you imagine a world without this invention? With these words, I want to say goodbye to you. It was very fun to do this podcast for you, and I hope you enjoyed, because I enjoyed it, and I really like when my listeners also enjoy. So just leave me some comments if you like, and well, then I would say bye-bye. See you the next time.